Hello again and welcome to follow my sailboat build project. My name is Panu and I am about to build this 15-meter liveaboard cruising sailboat here in Finland. It is now midsummer, it is 2nd of July, and in previous video you saw me laminating the first half of the frame 1. That frame has been done already and I have also made the frame number 2 already. And now I'm about to make a second half of the frame 3. So basically, I'm just gonna say that I'm gonna continue where I left in the previous video. If you want to support this project, of course, remember to subscribe, give me a like, check the Patreon and order those t-shirts and stuff. And now let's jump right into making boat parts. All right, this is the first half of the frame number 3. I laminated this yesterday, it is fully cured, which is great. Now the next job is to take these clamps off and flip this around. It is pretty tight on that end and it's awkward to laminate on the middle of the table, and I have actually the second half of the stem coming up there as well. And then we're gonna clean up a little bit bottom part so that we can laminate the next slats on that floor piece. Alright, now the clamps are off. Next I'm gonna whack these rods off and release this from the table so I can turn it around. But also I need to move this a little bit. This is the frame number 15. It's under work. I'm currently just cleaning it up because this was the third frame I did, I think. And yeah, it didn't go that well. And I need to fix it a little bit on the outer edge. So that's under work, but yeah, I need to kind of clean up this mess too. Yeah. Alright, these last 4 rods are pretty tight because they are in the middle of the part and there is epoxy gone into those threads. I have successfully removed them from the previous frames, so I think I'm gonna manage it this time as well. So they are like this. The thread in the middle here is filled with epoxy. Now this thing should be free. Let's see. Okay, now the frame is out of the table, and before I put it back, I of course need to put additional protective layer in here, and I also need to clean up that a little bit. This side has the slats laminated on, but this side will get them next. And now I have this protective tape here to prevent epoxy sticking into this wood just yet. And now I of course need to take this tape off, and there is some squeeze out epoxy there as well, and I need to clean that up as well. Dang it, I just ran out of tape, and yeah, I need to go and purchase some more. Now it's in here on its place, and yeah, I need to get more tape to put these molds on, because I need to cover them with tape. And also I am missing one mold, and that's because there was a couple of molds that are on the next pieces that I'm gonna cut, and I haven't done that yet. So I need to take this mold out from that side, and that should be completely usable. Got them. Small epoxy residue was here, and this plywood has stick there a little bit, but I can clean this up. And most probably I could use the previous molds for this side, but yeah, this is why I don't do it. Okay, here I have the slats. This is actually the last frame of this size, so I'm just gonna pick up the best from these piles. I'm not gonna need all of them, so let's shuffle the pack a little bit. There are some annoying knots in some of these, so gonna get rid of those. One, two, three, four, 5, 15. This pile should be enough. Now I'm just gonna put them in certain order, not to get any major knots on the outer edge, to prevent checking while bending them. Okay, here we go. This is the pile. Now I'll just make sure that it's enough. If we take a look down here, I push it against the mold, slat comes slightly over this bottom piece, so that's good. Make sure that that's the case in all positions. It's right on the edge here. Yeah, it's a little bit, but it's gonna be tapered this way, so that's all right. And right here is the widest part. It comes just slightly over, but I think that's good enough. Okay, now when the pile is figured out, I'm gonna grab a pen. I'm gonna mark how they should go. Like that. Now it's easy to say which goes which way and how they are going to be there. And then I'm gonna grab a drill and drill a hole through here, and that is for the dowel. They are pretty slippery when the epoxy is between, so that's a good way to keep them still. Just like that. And now I'm gonna drill a hole through this to that floor piece. And now I put a dowel here and it goes through here as well, and it holds it in place when I'm clamping it down. All right, lamination day. Now I'm gonna first lay these slats here. The first slat is the outermost, and it's gonna have epoxy just on this side. So this is the first one here. The next ones, they are gonna have epoxy on both sides. So I'm gonna lay them down other way around. So this is the first side, and then I'm gonna flip it over against this and then put epoxy on this side as well. I have developed this method a little bit over these frames. With the first frames that were so long, I was really not able to do these multiple slats at the time. But now when they are much shorter, just 1/2, I can place them side by side here as much as I can fit into this table. This is my mixing table, and before I start mixing, I need to clean up these containers. So this is the container from the last lamination, and yeah, it's all dry and hard, and I need to get this roller out of this. It can be a little hard. And then I need to clean up this container as well. It should just come right off from there. This time it was quite easy actually. Same goes with the mixing cup. Yeah, this should be good. And then the mixer doohickey. There it comes. Good as new. I've been watching so much YouTube that I knew that you really should use double gloves. And that is true. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you probably know that I have a sponsored epoxy deal with R Concept. This is a bit... Just a second. What I was saying, I have a sponsored deal with R Concept. They are making this green turtle bio-based epoxy, and they are a Spanish smallish company. And I really appreciate this deal because the epoxy is essential part of this project. Now on the summer time I'm using slow hardener. There is still some left in this. I have plenty more of that. On the winter time I used partly fast hardener as well. With epoxy it is essential to have a right mixing ratio, and I'm using weight to do that. I have a scale here, and then I'm gonna pour resin in here, and then I'm gonna zero it down and put hardener in there and then mix it. For the first batch it's going to go quite quickly. I'm using 400 gram batches. That means 400 grams of resin, and then this is by weight 100 to 30. So 100 grams of epoxy resin means 30 grams of hardener, and with 400 grams that means 120 grams of hardener. Whoops. Okay, 406. I'm just gonna put a little bit more to get 4 and 10. Like so. Now I can put hardener, and I need 123 grams of hardener into this batch. Like so. And then just mixing it. I am using the drill to mix this. It will create a lot of air bubbles in that mix, but in my case that doesn't matter because I'm using the roller to spread it, and all the air bubbles kind of get out in that process. And this is quite a lot easier in these temperatures compared to the winter time, where this was kind of it got almost like a foam. It's very important to mix the epoxy throughout and enough, and get all the edges mixed as well. I have had no issues whatsoever with this mixing method. Okay, now it's in this cup, and now I'm gonna spread it there. Okay, the first layer of epoxy is on these slats, and now when it's really warm actually, the epoxy is pretty liquid, so I need to be careful to put enough epoxy on every layer. So now this is just initial layer, but now I'm gonna add some more on this one, where I'm gonna flip the next slat on. I really need to be quite fast to get this epoxy out of this cup. There is plenty of working time when the epoxy is spread out, but when it's on this cup, it kicks off pretty fast. Good indication is that when I'm not hearing any sound from the roller, then there is enough epoxy in here. And I'm not using any fillers in this epoxy. I don't need to fill anything really. I just need to glue these plain surfaces together. So many channels or many instructions say that you should add some filling agent, but I haven't really noticed any need for that. Okay, now there is epoxy on all of these, and generous amount on this, and now I'm gonna flip this over on top of this one. Now the hole aligns and the marker aligns. That is good to go. And now I'm gonna add generous amount of epoxy on this, and then flip this over, and so forth. Okay, it started raining quite a lot. I got the first batch spread out on this pile. Next I'm gonna put another pile there and mix another batch of epoxy. I was successful because the epoxy tends to gel quite suddenly when you have it on that big container, so you really need to be really fast with that. And that 400 grams was just enough for this layer, so I need at least 400 grams more and then some more for putting them on the mold. It's around 1 kilogram of epoxy on one side of this. Now the pile of those slats are spread with epoxy. Next I'm gonna do another batch and put epoxy on this plywood here, on this floor piece here, and also these top side plywood pieces that are going to be right about there. And there's that filler piece though there as well. So this will take, I think, 200 to 300 grams of epoxy, including I need to spread some epoxy also on these surfaces on this side and the other side as well. So there's enough epoxy on against these plywood sheets, and they will fill some of these small gaps that are gonna be inside there. So that's important as well. Alright, only a couple of more things to do before clamping. To spread the rest of the epoxy on these surfaces and then put a couple of dowels. The dowel in here and the dowel on that filler piece. So I'm gonna cut those dowels first. So now I have epoxy on this side. I'm gonna flip it over, but I'm gonna go and grab some spacers so that not all the epoxy is on the table. So these are the same plywood as this one, so it is exactly same thickness. I'm just gonna put it in here. And I almost forgot, there is one more thing. I need to put epoxy on this area right here to glue it against the floor piece, and also somewhere around here to glue it against that filler piece. And now I'm gonna take this whole pile and push it against there and put the dowel in. Now all the epoxy has been spread. Now it's just about clamping. I'm gonna start with this lower part, put 1 or 2 clamps over here, just to make sure I'm gonna push this lower end against there and it won't move anymore. Then I'm gonna clamp gradually one by one here and bend the whole pile. And when I'm over this tight curve, then I can go and put more clamps at a time. So this first section is the hardest, of course. Okay, now the first two clamps are on their position, and now I'm gonna gradually tighten them. It is almost as important to clamp them on the mold, it is important to clamp them down to get good result. But the system works quite well, and I started to push this against the mold. Now I'm gonna push this another one a little bit. Yep, and that's enough. This whole section is gonna be cut out, so it's not that important to get it fully in there, as you can see on this side. But now there is quite a lot of pressure pushing it against the mold, and I can see nice squeeze out coming from there. Now I'm gonna change the socket and push these down for good. So these are now done. Next I'm gonna put clamp right in here, and before that I'm actually starting to bend the pile. It is really hard to bend the whole pile from here, but when you have leverage from back there, it is actually quite easy. And now most of the curve is already there. There is still a gap about 3 centimeters in there, but that should go pretty easily already. All right, and that's the third clamp, and now it's just continue the same. This is pretty straightforward already, so I think you'll manage with the time lapse, I think. And now it is done. I got nice squeeze out everywhere. That tells that there is enough epoxy in all the joints. I got it clamped well. The only problem really is with these rods again. Some of them have been accumulated some damage on them, and there's also quite a lot of epoxy remains, so I'm hoping I don't have to do any more of these. And I think that was enough also for this video. This was a little bit of a deeper dive into laminating again, and I just thought now that this might be the last video I show you the lamination of these frames. There are still 4 of them to go. They are really big frames, but the work is basically the same, just a little bit more clamps and a little bit longer, and that's about it. So I'm gonna do those off camera. Instead, I'm trying to show you a little bit something else. There is things happening here, other things as well. So the next video is probably gonna be the other half of that stem. So yeah, feel free to leave a comment, give me a like, of course subscribe. check the Patreon and the t-shirts, and we will see you again soon, and have a really nice summer if you're in the northern hemisphere, and eat some ice cream. I will. Bye.